History loves control. It's built on dates, categories, and timelines that give the illusion we've got the past all mapped out. But some discoveries refuse to fit. They show up in the wrong place at the wrong time, surrounded by silence or denial. Sometimes they're just brushed off, and other times they're banned, forbidden, or hidden from public view like they never happened. So join us for today's video as we count down 15 outrageous discoveries that were never supposed to exist. Number 15. Human finger fossil. Humans love to show fingers like, "You get what I mean." But this time, it was an ancient finger that flipped off everything we thought we knew about human migration. In 2016, archaeologists unearthed a single-inch-long finger bone at Al-Wusta, a prehistoric lake site in what's now a brutally dry patch of Saudi Arabia. So, what's outrageous about this find? Well, radiometric dating pinned it at 88,000 years old, and that's nearly 30,000 years before modern humans were supposed to have left Africa. So, yeah, this tiny bone just body-slammed the mainstream out of Africa timeline. Some archaeologists and scientists think that back then, the Arabian Peninsula wasn't the bone-dry wasteland we see today. It was green, thriving, and full of lakes, hippos, and apparently humans dropping stone tools like breadcrumbs. The site has since turned up thousands of those tools, but this bone, it's the first direct fossil evidence that our ancestors were strolling through Arabia way earlier than textbooks admit. Some scientists still argue it's not definitively Homo sapiens, but it's enough to crack open a whole new chapter in human history. Number 14. The Nazca Mummy Controversy. There is nothing more controversial than these ugly-looking things. Just Google it, and you'll find a bunch of dudes holding up what looks like E.T.'s dehydrated cousin with the confidence of someone unboxing treasure. We're talking about the Nazca mummies. Yup, those shriveled figures with elongated skulls and 3 fingers that have been causing a scientific meltdown since 2015. Found in Peru's Nazca region, you know, the place famous for its ancient desert doodles, these mummies didn't come quietly. From day one, they've been branded everything from alien corpses to ancient hoaxes made from llama bones and spare parts. Now here's the goosebumpy part. Some preliminary DNA tests actually showed human genomes, but with features that just don't line up with anything in our little biology textbooks. Skeptics screamed, "Fake." Scientists called for more studies. And the internet? Well, it lit up like a UFO sighting in Roswell. Whether they're ancient mutations, elaborate forgeries, or something we're not ready to understand, we say one thing: the Nazca mummies weren't supposed to exist. But here they are. Number 13. The Acambaro figures. In 1944, Waldemar Julesrud was riding his horse near Acambaro, Mexico, when he spotted something in the dirt, small ceramic figures buried beneath the surface. What followed was a dig that unearthed over 32,000 strange figurines. Some resembled humans from wildly different regions: Egyptians, Asians, even Europeans. Others portrayed animals never seen by ancient Mesoamericans, including multiple dino species with eerie anatomical accuracy. Creationists latched onto the figures immediately, claiming they proved humans and dinosaurs coexisted. But for archaeologists, the story didn't add up. The figurines showed no aging or soil damage consistent with objects buried for thousands of years. Radiocarbon dating produced unreliable timelines, and many believe the entire haul was a carefully constructed hoax, incentivized by Julesrud's pay-per-figure system. Even so, their sheer quantity and unusual designs continue to baffle. No mainstream academic accepts them as authentic, yet they remain a bizarre anomaly. Number 12. The Horned Skull of Sayre. During the 1880s in Sayre, Pennsylvania, workers excavating a burial mound uncovered skeletal remains that stopped everything. The bodies were tall, over 7 feet, and the skulls had something else: bony projections 2 inches above the eyebrows resembling horns. A group of respected antiquarians, including Presbyterian dignitaries and museum officials, documented the find. The skeletons were sent to a museum in Philadelphia. Then they vanished. No peer-reviewed studies, no preserved records, just photos, scattered mentions, and a blank space where the evidence should have been. It wasn't the first time horned skulls were found in North America. Similar reports came out of New York and Texas around the same era. Throughout history, horns have symbolized power, deity, and command, from Alexander the Great to ancient depictions of Yahweh. Some saw the Sayre skulls as proof of giants or something even stranger. Others waved it off as a hoax or exaggeration. But the fact remains, multiple witnesses saw something they couldn't explain. Then it was removed from view. Number 11. The Los Lunas Decalogue Stone. On the side of Hidden Mountain in New Mexico rests a massive stone inscribed with ancient characters. Known as the Los Lunas Decalogue Stone, it bears a version of the Ten Commandments in Paleo-Hebrew, an alphabet unknown to most scholars before the 20th century. According to reports, a local guide showed the boulder to archaeologist Frank Hibben in 1933, claiming he'd seen it as a child back in the 1880s. If true, it predates the discovery of the script by modern linguists, making a modern forgery unlikely. But the inscription is messy. Some claim it uses punctuation inconsistent with ancient Hebrew, while others argue it's authentic and reflects a pre-Columbian Semitic presence in North America. The stone itself is over 80 tons, unmovable, unstudied in any lab, and left exposed to time and speculation. There's no other structure nearby, no community tied to it, and no definitive explanation. It sits in the open, part scripture, part mystery. Believers call it proof, critics call it nonsense, but no one can explain it away entirely. Number 10. Giants of North America. Across North America, a long and messy trail of reports tells of skeletons far larger than any man. Some measured over 10 feet. Others were buried in ceremonial positions, surrounded by tools, carvings, or symbols no one could translate. One skeleton found in California's Lompoc Rancho in 1833 was said to be 12 feet tall with double rows of teeth. Another near waterproof Louisiana stretched nearly 10 feet, buried with what looked like prehistoric suits sewn from strange animal skins. Stories like these flooded local newspapers throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, but none of the remains are publicly accessible now. Many were reportedly sent to museums, often the Smithsonian, and then vanished. Theories range from early human races to deliberate cover-ups to protect evolutionary timelines. Skeptics dismiss the accounts as exaggerations, folklore, or hoaxes. But there are too many records, too many witnesses, and too many missing bones. Something was found. What exactly it was or who wanted it gone remains unanswered. Number 9. The Atlantis Caves of the Colorado Desert. In 1947, a strange article appeared in a Nevada newspaper describing an archaeological site near the California-Nevada border. It claimed the discovery of 32 underground caves spanning a 180-square-mile radius. Inside were the remains of 8 to 9 foot tall giants dressed in unknown animal skins, alongside fossilized bones of extinct creatures, saber-toothed cats, dinosaurs, and mammoths. The man who claimed to have found them, Dr. F. Bruce Russell, said it was a lost civilization driven underground by disaster. His statements were sensational, sure, but detailed. He described utensils, tools, and even stoves. Years earlier, another man supposedly found the same burial caves and contacted the Smithsonian, only for the evidence to vanish. No formal investigation followed. No bones surfaced, just another story filed away under myth. Skeptics called it madness. Others claimed suppression. If true, it's not just outrageous, it rewrites the history of life in the Americas. If false, it's one of the most elaborate ghost stories science never touched. What do you think about it? Well, let us know. Now let's move to number 8, Kensington Runestone. We've talked a lot of times about this stone like it's just some weird Norse fan fiction carved into granite. But the Kensington Runestone refuses to fade out quietly. Discovered in 1898 by Olaf Oman while clearing land in Minnesota, the 200-pound slab was tangled in tree roots as if nature had been trying to keep it hidden. Covered in runic script, the inscription tells of a 14th century Norse expedition, 8 Goths and 22 Norwegians from Vinland, tortured and bloodied, crying out to the Virgin Mary in 1362. If it is legitimate, it means that Scandinavian explorers reached the heart of North America nearly 130 years before Columbus. Most scholars dismissed it as a hoax. Still, in 2000, geologist Scott Wolter tested the stone and claimed it had been weathering underground for centuries. He even tied it to the Knights Templar. Wild? This stone now sits in a Minnesota museum, quietly daring anyone to prove it wrong, or worse, admit it's pretty real. Number 7. The Porpoise Grave of Chapelle Dame Hugh. On the uninhabited island of Chapelle Dame Hugh off the coast of Guernsey, archaeologists expected ruins of a medieval chapel. What they didn't expect was a porpoise buried like a person. Neatly laid in its own grave, surrounded by nothing, the animal had been placed there almost 600 years ago on land, not far from the sea. Monks lived there at the time, and they ate porpoise, so maybe it was butchered. But if it was food, why bury it? Why dig a grave for something edible instead of tossing it back into the ocean just feet away? One theory suggested food storage. Maybe it was salted or buried in brine to keep it fresh. But if that's true, why only one porpoise? Why not more? The grave was orderly, intentional. Yet no ritual explains it, and no other examples have turned up. It's not enough to say it was odd, it was deliberate, and it doesn't belong anywhere in Christian burial practices or any known human logic. Number 6. The Skull Helmets of Salongo. In 2019, archaeologists excavating the Salongo site in coastal Ecuador found burials belonging to the Guangala culture. 2 infant skeletons stood out immediately. Each was wearing the hollowed skull of another child, fitted like a helmet over their heads. These weren't accidental placements or jumbled remains. The skulls had been carefully positioned. Anatomical studies say that the outer skulls still had flesh on them when used, otherwise they'd have collapsed. The infants were buried with other grave goods, but no other body at the site was treated this way. No written records exist to explain the practice, and no similar ritual has been found anywhere else. Theories ranged from protective symbolism to ancestral power, but none hold weight without more evidence. It wasn't war. It was something cultural, ritualistic, and singular. What exactly it meant is lost. What's left is the image of 2 infants, interred centuries ago, wearing the faces of other children, an act that was purposeful, unsettling, and never meant to be forgotten. Number 5. The Wolf's Egg Iron Cube. In 1885, a worker in an Austrian foundry cracked open a block of coal and discovered something wedged inside. It was a small metallic object, cube-like, but slightly irregular, made of iron, with straight edges and shallow grooves along its sides. The coal dates back around 20 million years. That alone set off alarm bells. Iron artifacts shouldn't exist in that timeline. Some suggested it was a natural concretion or the result of slag contamination, but metallurgy tests confirmed it had been shaped intentionally. The grooves were too symmetrical, and the edges too defined to be coincidence. Its surface had oxidized in a way consistent with long burial. It wasn't just the age, it was the context. Coal forms under immense pressure over millions of years, meaning the object had to be there when that process started. That placed human-level technology tens of millions of years before any known civilization or even proto-humans. The Wolf's Egg iron is no longer on public display. Officially, it's been dismissed. Unofficially, it won't go away. Number 4. The Singapore Stone. Before colonial ships ever docked in Singapore, a massive sandstone slab stood at the river's mouth, carved with 50 lines of script no one could read. It stood there for centuries, its origin and message unknown. Then, in 1843, British officials blew it up to widen the riverbank for military construction. What remains is this stone, which is on display in a museum, stripped of context and silenced by explosives. The writing appears ancient, possibly 13th century, but its language hasn't been confirmed. Some think it was Javanese. Others speculate it was Tamil or Sanskrit. No one knows for sure. It might have carried a royal edict, a myth, or even a historical timeline of a lost settlement, but most of it is gone. Destroyed in the name of progress, with only one silent shard left to argue with time. This wasn't just an archaeological oversight, it was a deliberate erasure of something that didn't fit, one that still leaves a blank in Southeast Asia's history. Number 3. The face carvings of Lipensky Vir. Lipensky Vir isn't just some old dig site tucked away in Serbia, it's one of the oldest permanent human settlements in Europe. But what sets it apart isn't the age. It's what was left behind, over 100 eerie face carvings shaped from red sandstone. These aren't portraits or symbols of fertility. They're something else. The faces are geometric, almost abstract, with bulging fish-like eyes and flat, open mouths. Some archaeologists think they were meant to represent river spirits. Others say they're gods, guardians, or even human-animal hybrids. No one agrees. They don't resemble anything made in surrounding cultures, and they don't appear again anywhere else. The people who carved them vanished without explanation, and the carvings themselves were buried under layers of domestic life like their makers had already moved on or forgotten. The carvings don't fit neatly into spiritual or artistic categories. They don't answer questions. They just exist, older than writing, older than myth, staring back with silent stone-set eyes that no one can read. Number 2. The Copper Scroll Treasure. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, written on parchment or papyrus, this one was etched on pure copper, and we've also talked about it in our earlier videos. This thing was found rolled up in 2 parts inside a cave near Qumran in 1952. It was a list, 70 locations, specific weights, measures, descriptions of where enormous treasures were supposedly hidden. Gold, silver, vessels, and sacred items are buried across hills, in cisterns, and under monuments. Scholars at first dismissed it as fantasy or metaphor, but the style didn't match the myth. It read like an inventory. The weight of the treasure listed totals more than any known Jewish temple hoard. No other scroll like it exists. Some researchers believe it was real, a desperate catalog of hidden wealth during times of invasion. Excavations based on its clues led nowhere, or maybe weren't taken far enough. To this day, not a single item listed has been found. But the scroll wasn't fiction. It was copper, and copper doesn't fade even when belief in what it says does. Number 1. The Beigong Pipes. At the foot of China's Mount Beigong sits a pyramid-shaped formation, and beneath it, a network of pipes running into the bedrock. Some are half buried in the mountain, others stretch into a nearby saltwater lake. First documented by Chinese researchers in the early 2000s, the pipes came from deep within the rock, some sections dated to over 150,000 years old based on nearby sediment. Chemical analysis showed iron oxide, calcium, and trace materials not common in natural formations. The strangest detail, some of the pipes were hollow, evenly bored, and aligned as if placed with purpose. Theories spiraled: lost civilizations, ancient technology, alien outposts. Geologists tried to explain it away as fossilized tree roots turned to iron through natural mineralization. But tree roots don't run straight through solid rock in clustered systems, nor do they form junctions or symmetrical holes. The site was quietly restricted. No large-scale follow-up studies were funded. And so, the pipes remain, rusting quietly beneath a mountain no one wants to talk about. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you pretty soon in the next one.